Hey friends, welcome back to the pod. Today we have a very special, unique life update that we want to share with you. But before we jump into our life update, we want to remind you to download our 2024 goal setting guide if you haven't already. It's benefited a ton of people, and we create this guide every year, and a lot of people have benefited from it. So if you haven't already, please download our 2024 goal setting guide. So, let's jump into our life update. What
Yes.
updates of life do we have, babe?
Can you guys guess? Well, no, I'll just dispel the myth because Alex likes to allude that it's a pregnancy and we're not pregnant yet. So I just want to pop that assumption. And our life update is actually we are moving by the end of this month. So it's a very exciting move. It's been a long process. And we'll talk more about how that happened and share a little bit of the story and yeah, just how God's been leading us in it. But yeah, this episode is really a bit different. Usually we talk, if you're new here, we talk about, how to navigate life, different areas of life through God's lens and to do it with Him. But this episode, we're actually just going to share our own personal testimony and story of how we've been trying our best to do that in terms of this decision, and also looking ahead too. So I think I'll share, first of all, yeah, we're not going to reveal yet where it is until the end to give a little
Wow.
clipping.
You gotta watch to the end.
Gotta watch till the end. Or listen. But basically, for the past few years, it's been several years now, both Alex and I have kind of felt like, God might be actually he's gonna direct us somewhere else other than the Bay. Like, it was a very vague sense and impression that both of us got. But I remember when we got married, in 2020, we were like, we feel like the next step is not to, because we were getting some pressure from family members, not a lot, but just some questions about like, oh, are you guys gonna get a place and settle down here? Like, that's
It's also self-imposed.
yeah, also
Like it's
self-imposed
the adult
pressure.
thing to do after you get married. Oh,
Right.
let's buy a house.
Yeah,
So
or like settle, like pick somewhere and like stay forever, basically. And
right.
so that was like the logical next step in terms of like the human societal narrative that we're told. But both of us were just like not at peace with that. I think for me, it was um I could definitely feel the pressure, but I also felt frustrated with myself. Like, why don't I feel good about it? Like, it was like an internal conflict. And then for Alex, you also felt like FOMO, kind of like, oh, well, everyone else is doing this, so I guess we should too. Like, kind of that sense.
I think there's like the pressure to settle and get a place. It's just like the adult thing to do.
Or
But
what society tells us.
yeah,
Yeah.
basically. But at the same time, I just didn't feel like
Yeah.
it's so
Yeah. It's
ambiguous.
hard to explain.
It's not even like God told me this or anything. It's just I didn't really see myself in the Bay Area long term, whatever long means.
Yeah.
Um so I didn't quite have peace about planting somewhere or buying a property just because it's like the
You sh-
next thing to do.
you should, or you're supposed to. Yeah.
Yeah, and one story that really inspired me that my life coach told me was she told me of this CEO. I won't name him, but you probably know who he is. But he's Christian, and he was every day he and his wife would pray like, God, do you want us to buy a house or settle down or something like that. And for 15 years or so, he didn't buy a property, but his business was very, very successful. If I said the name, you would probably know what it is. So that just really inspired me to really seek after the Lord and not just do things just
Mm-hmm.
because it's the thing to do or
Yeah.
what society or the world says.
Conventional.
Um, at the same time, I I I wanted to move. I just didn't know where, and I just didn't want to make a decision just
Out of
because
pressure.
it was out of pressure
Yeah.
or anything like that. I wasn't discontent either. It was just I didn't feel like this
Yeah.
was my place to be.
Right.
I did get called here, and I'm so grateful for the 5-ish years that God has worked in and through my life here. And there's like so many things that I'm grateful for, but I guess we'll get into that later. But
Yeah.
that's kind of the process for me.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah, I think a lot of people we also talked to who had gotten places basically strongly told us they were like, make sure you only get a place if you're certain that's your decision. Like, you don't want to make one out of pressure or like you don't feel good about it because with owning a place, it takes a lot of responsibility. There's going to be so many, like the process is complicated. Like there's so many things that you have to take care of that beforehand you don't really think about. So just all the costs and all the mental load that you have to take on as well. But yeah, you said something about like, God didn't even like tell you necessarily, but I also feel like it's important for us to mention like God also does speak to us in those feelings and thoughts that we have internally. Like sometimes it is that quiet whisper, of like, why do I keep thinking this? Or why does this feeling like not it just doesn't sit well with my soul. There's some like little nuances like that sometimes we don't pay attention to because we're trying to like find a burning bush, from God when actually he's already speaking to us in those subtle ways. Um amongst so many other things. But basically, both of us didn't feel good about it. I particularly was like, there's so many, of course, there's logical pros and cons and stuff. But at the end of the day, it's like when we seek God about it, and if you don't have peace to do it, then like think about what's the real reason why you would be doing it. And for me, it was like, oh, because I feel like I'm supposed to. I want to please people, and maybe I feel like a sense of a false guilt of like, oh, I need to stay loyal to the Bay Area because that's where I'm from. This is where we are right now in the San Francisco Bay Area. So I grew up here. My parents are here, and I know a lot of people. Like all my closer networks are all based here. So a part of me for a long time also felt like, oh, if I like leave, it's like betraying like the people here. I don't know. It's like a weird sense of that guilt,
Mm.
you know. But at the same time, there are people who are called specifically to the Bay Area, and I think this is something I talked to some friends, especially in the church, who like I think the church narrative is so great of like, go where you're called. But sometimes I think it can be over indexed and there's a little bit of a hot take, but I think it's true.
What is the hot take?
It's like, if you're specifically called by God to be planted here or anywhere, then that's what you're supposed to do is just obey God's leading. But that call is not the same for everyone. And I think that nuance isn't talked about enough in like the
Mm.
Christian circle of like,
Yeah, otherwise everyone should be here.
yeah, the whole
Yeah, we
world
gotta
should
spread
like,
the gospel only in the Bay Area.
yeah,
We
like
should spread
everywhere.
the gospel everywhere.
Right. But I think I just wish, I hope this story can give, if someone does feel that imposed like pressure of like, oh, I feel bad that I don't feel called here. And I actually want to, move to Connecticut or, whatever other state to be closer with family or to pursue my dreams, like whatever it is that you would feel the permission to dream with God and ask God about those desires rather than feel boxed in of like I have to be loyal to like the vision and the mission of a certain community or a group of people because you never know where God might be leading you. Anyway, this is kind of going on a trail, but basically for many years, Alex and I have been sensing this ambiguous, like, okay, where is God leading us if it's not going to be the Bay Area? Or maybe it is the Bay Area and God will change our heart and our desire and convict us of staying. And then this year in particular, at the beginning of the year, we already sensed like that feeling of ambiguous, like, where is God leading us became stronger than ever, especially at the beginning of this year. Like we literally were like ready. I like started selling some things in like February, like
You were
March.
mentally checked out.
Yeah, I was like, I really feel like this is the year that like God is going to call us somewhere, but I don't know where or when or how. But yeah, both of us when we were like reflecting and journaling as we do every beginning of every year, we sensed that. And so it was confusing and it was hard because throughout the whole year, we never got like a clear burning bush, blaring sign from God about like move here, move there. And that process in and of itself was also teaching us again of how to discern for ourselves instead of like relying on necessarily like a burning bush or like people, explicitly telling us, God told me to tell you this, but to actually have that intimate, close relationship with God so that we can hear him and discern his voice for ourselves. Um,
We almost moved though
yeah,
in
we
the middle of the year. So
right,
our
our lease.
lease ended in June 2023, and we were about to move to. Are we allowed to say
Yeah.
to Hawaii, Maui? And then I just felt like God was saying, "Slow down.
Mhm.
This is way too fast. Like
Right.
it's like May 2023. Your lease is ending in June. Don't just do things out of just because you have an itch
Right.
to go somewhere."
Yeah. And
So
maybe shed a little bit light on like why Maui, just so people know that process in and of itself. Basically, when we visited, so we've been there a couple times, and every time it has been. I mean, also there's like other factors, but there's just a sense of like God is really putting this place on our hearts, and we even like got really connected with community there. Like we have friends there, we make connections there without really like trying. It just like happened. Like God just led us naturally and gave us really powerful encounters there too. And so yeah, we were like praying a lot about that because we were like, I don't know. And then especially for me, I was also stuck in still struggling with that mindset of like guilt of like, I should be suffering for the gospel. Like this feels really weird and bad. And like, I don't know. Because I just kept projecting what other people's opinions would be if they misunderstood, our intentions. So I feel like through that, God taught both of us a lot, especially for me to like wrestle with discerning, the godliness of desires and surrender and not being trapped or dictated by other people's thoughts and opinions, which is really hard for a recovering people pleaser. Um, but yeah, we were like trying to decide that. We had connections and a pastor we were like consulting with in Maui who is so kind and helping us and talking it through with us. But then right after we actually extended our lease for half a year, not a full year, because we were like, we don't feel great about a full year. We feel like we would just be doing that out of fear and out of like safety, but we also don't feel good about just like ending the lease without anything, any clarity or vision from God right now. So we extended for half a year, and then when that happened, like I think it was not that long afterwards, Maui had the wildfires that happened.
yeah,
That
they
was
did.
so tragic and so just like crazy seeing all the
Yeah, that
stories.
probably could have been us. So
Yeah.
God saved us there.
Yeah, but not just that, it was like also it was kind of a sign. I think after that I was like, okay, now I really would not feel good about moving there after, they had such a natural disaster. They're short on resources. We were invited to this boot camp in Kona on the Big Island, and we donated like a bunch of our supplies because we knew they were short on supplies. Like we just felt very clearly our role is not to take up more space, but to do everything we can to contribute and to help those people. If God put that island and that community on our hearts for a reason, maybe it's for this to serve and to really like pray and intercede for them. So anyway, fast forward like a couple more months, and then I think I came to you and I was like, I feel like we prayed and like discerned this for so long that I feel like we should just make a decision, like a God informed decision, and
Yeah.
like trust that he's with us, trust that we can make mistakes and he can redirect. And maybe we've grown, maybe this is a situation where we've grown in maturity enough where he doesn't feel like he needs to handhold and dictate every single little step that we take, but he can actually give us the wisdom and the discernment to make moves on our own now. And, with enough peace and prayer and discernment with our close friends, community mentors and stuff, and what we've sensed from God and his word, that we can actually just move and, you know, trust in his grace and provision. So,
Yeah, I'll share more about the process, high level. So it was around October where we decided, hey, we're gonna take a week to fast and pray. So both of us decided to fast and pray for the week, and we decided, actually, Grace's idea was, don't tell each other what God is telling us or what we're thinking in the process because
Mhm.
we don't want to influence each other. I thought that was a great idea. And so each day we would spend time in prayer and just talking with God and just asking God to reveal Himself to us regarding a place or whatever else He wanted to speak to us about. So for me, each day I would write down, okay, I feel like God is highlighting this place. I'll just write it down. I don't know why, but I'm just gonna write it down, and I believe God speaks to us. So okay, cool. This makes no sense to me, but it came to my mind. And so we did that until the end of the week. We decided that we would reveal what the places God was highlighting to us. So that same morning, I had a really incredible time with God where I just got to journal and pray and read scripture. And I was just like so engrossed into the word. And then I rushed into our bedroom, and Grace was in the bedroom, and I was like, honey, I have revelations. And so that was where we began to really share more about what God was speaking to us about.
Mhm.
And so I guess this is where we reveal our location. So I said a specific location
The lead up is so
along with
real.
some second, third, and fourth places. And then Grace shared hers. And lo and behold, we actually landed on the same location that we haven't even talked about before.
Yes.
And with all that said, the big update is we are moving from the Bay Area to San
San Diego.
Diego, California.
Shout out to anyone who lives there or is from there. Yeah, can I share my
Yeah,
side of like how that happened? So
yeah.
there's a lot more that is so like miraculous about this story that is why we wanted to share because we're still in the midst of this whole process, guys. This is not one of those, wrapped up, God did this and then we learned this and then like this all worked out. Like we're literally in the middle of the testimony. So but we have already seen God be faithful and show up. And this is why we're so confident about making that move because we know that He's in it with us. So that's what we wanted to share with you guys about all the ups and downs and how we honestly are feeling and processing everything. So that morning when Alex burst into our room, I was so surprised because he rarely does that. And
What do you mean?
what like you rarely say like, "Oh my gosh, I have revelation from God," like so clearly and like, with so much conviction. For me, it's usually like I have a lot of those moments. But that day I was like, I have nothing. I was so frustrated because the whole week I had fasted and prayed and it was great time with God for sure and just surrendering everything to Him and being an open book to process with God. But on the last day I was so confused and just like my brain was like it literally could be any of these 10 plus places that have come up for me throughout the week and I'm so confused. I don't know what God is giving me and we're supposed to reveal to each other and I have nothing to give and I was just very discouraged and I was like pleading to God like please give me a sign or something and then Alex came into the room with that excitement.
I'm the sign.
Yeah. so
I'm the angel.
and so I was like, "What? Okay, please do share." So when he was sharing his like whole process of like what God like revealed to him, blah blah blah. Inside I was like, "Wow, wait till he hears my version." Because when he revealed San Diego, and I was like, "That is so wild," and like the pieces clicked for me. And the reason why is because even before the fast started on Monday, my journal entry, maybe I should dig it up again and read it, but my journal entry literally was something like, I don't know why, but the past 3 days already, God has been bringing up San Diego to me like over and over. And I don't know if it's God. Maybe it's just me. Maybe it's just my head. Maybe it's just like random thoughts. But I'm just writing it down just in case. And then throughout the entire week, San Diego kept coming up. And I was like, why does it keep coming up? I was actually like trying to actively fight San Diego and be like, you're distracting me from like thinking clearly. But yeah, I was like journaling. I was like, I don't know why, but okay, whatever. So I like it clicked when Alex shared his pieces of the puzzle. For me, I was like, oh my gosh, that's why I kept getting San Diego, even though I kept trying to fight it. And the other part was, do you want to share, what came up for you in the middle of the week?
Yeah, I felt like the Lord saying to me, listen to my wife. And one
It's a pretty good piece of advice.
pretty good, yeah, yeah. What I realized was that what I've noticed, and I need to, this is not verbatim or anything, but I was reading, and in Genesis, go- well, even before then, the Holy Spirit is known to be like an advocate, or the Holy Spirit is an advocate, and is also a helper. And then I was reading Genesis about Adam and Eve and how God sent Eve to be like an advocate and a helper. And I thought, huh, well, I'm a dude. Grace is my wife. Is it possible that the Holy Spirit can speak to me through my wife, and my wife and the Holy Spirit are my advocate and my helper? And I just
Dang,
thought, wow, I felt like God was saying, go, go talk with your wife, or be in alignment with your wife. And then
that's good.
you had a similar situation that came out too.
Yeah, so when he was sharing this with me, like in the process, I was in shock because I was like, wow, the exact same time frame, like in the middle of the week, I also wrote in my journal like a very clear, like that day when I was asking God about, a place or whatever, it actually wasn't even a place. What I heard really clearly was it's about being in alignment with your spouse. Like if you and your husband are in agreement, I will be there with you. Like it's not about a magical one single place. It's really about being arms linked with each other, going in the same direction, choosing the same place with peace about it, in alignment and agreement. And I will be with you, and I'll protect you, I'll bless you, I'll provide and guide, and my grace will be with you too. And I was like, okay, that doesn't exactly help, but it's also very comforting and encouraging. So he was like giving both of us, all of these little pieces of the puzzle. And I was just amazed on the last day when we shared and it all clicked. And I was like, whoa. And I was just sharing with a friend, or several friends about this throughout the past few weeks, about how one of the biggest lessons I learned was like in marriage, this is actually what God designed us to do, is to help for us to be a team and figuring out like what to do, like make decisions together and share, what God is speaking to all of us individually to, then get a clearer picture versus when you're not married, you're for me, I was always very independent. I'm like, I'm just gonna do whatever it is that I feel God telling me and, bounce it off people. But at the end of the day, it's just me. Like I felt this self-reliance and this pressure of like, I need to come up with a plan or like a clear um next step. And I kind of carried that with me, I noticed, into marriage of like, I need to come up with a plan and a clear next step to propose to Alex and then see what he says, and then we'll compare our plans. When actually it was about drawing the plan together with God like leading us. So
Yeah, yeah. Even practically speaking, well, I'm glad God spoke to us like that, because even practically speaking, if we were to move forward with a location and the other person disagreed or just doesn't sit
that would have been
right,
so hard.
I don't think it would be very pretty. Like,
Yeah.
one, it would either make the other person resentful or just feel off.
So yeah, that was kind of like the big picture of how that happened. And then Alex, the day that we shared that, he was like so excited to share with people already. And I was like, are you sure? This is so fresh. It's like almost like you just found out you're pregnant and you're gonna like start sharing with people already. But he was so excited. So we did share with like friends that we were meeting up with that day. And then even that day you were like looking up places to live, and like I was like, oh my gosh, this is another, I feel like another clear sign it's God, because usually you're very resistant to change, or it takes more time for you to like wrap your head around it. But he was so ready and so just had a lot of peace about it, even though for me, I
Yeah,
was the one.
it's definitely a sign when you're excited about
Yeah.
going to your
Yeah.
next season or chapter.
Yeah. And for me, I was actually struggling a lot because I was like, well, yeah, God gave us this place, but how is it going to happen? Like, how logistically are we going to do that?
Usually that's an Alex question.
Yeah. So our roles were kind of switched in this case, but it really encouraged me to see how excited he was, how ready he was, and that fueled my faith as well. But yeah, realistically, I just had so many questions of like, are you sure about it? Like, are you really sure this is a fresh decision we just made? And plus, your job
I have this
is
tendency to just like spill the beans too quickly.
he loves sharing and not having any filter. Anyway, so for me, I was like, his job was not remote. He on his team, or I'll say even now, on your team right now, you're the only non-remote person besides your manager. Everyone else is remote. So yeah, we were like not sure, would they approve that, or if not, would he get another job? And I had like all these questions, including like how are we going to find housing if we don't know anyone and we aren't there physically, we're not going to be visiting soon, so et cetera, et cetera. Um, so yeah, do you want to talk about that aspect of like how we figured out the job situation?
I mean, guys, this is fresh. This is like Grace said, we're not. We don't have this wrapped in a bow. Yeah, even now I'm still wrestling with things. But so when I found out the news, I told my manager that I'm going to request remote, and if it doesn't get approved, then I will resign with no plan in place. And so I filled out this form to request being remote, and then I gave them a timeline that I expect an answer by at the latest. And so it actually took a month, which is, I don't know other company policies, but for me, that took a while. It was a long month. And so fast forward to a month, finally, I got a decision and it was rejected. So then I was true to my word and I put in my resignation. And that really scared me. And so the question in my practical mind is, okay, Alex has no job, no income. What must I do to make up the income? Should I look for like a similar job in another company? Should I look internally? And that's what I did. I looked internally and I applied externally. And so I was in a final round interview with a company. I was in the initial rounds with a few others, including one internally. And then I I felt like I was doing it out of fear. Um, and also I spoke with some wise counsel in my life, some mentors and who are just who just have more experience and they can call me out on my BS. And so after talking with them, and these are like very well respected people in my life. They're well respected in the world, but also well respected. Highly respect them. I decided that I was going to retract my interview process from all the opportunities that I applied for. And so, as of now, as of this recording, there is no like plan B
Plan
in
B.
terms of a
Yeah.
corporate job. So, what we're deciding as of now is that we're gonna, well, for me, I've been working for a while. So, I honestly it feels kind of nice to take a little break.
Hmm.
So I think there's a restoration piece of it that I'm really excited for. At the same time, it's a little scary. But we both agreed that we would focus full time on our ministry and business and podcasts and everything that goes along with that. I'm really gifted operationally and administratively and strategically as well. And Grace is really gifted in the creative side of things and content and everything that goes on with that. So I feel like we have very complementary strengths. But
Hmm.
more than anything, and most importantly for me, I think it's really just trusting God more and not leaning on jobs or companies to provide finances, but really to depend on God.
Mm.
And I will also say that this is not a formula that you should follow. Definitely discern with God,
Yeah.
pray, ask wise counsel. Do not follow the Alex Tran formula. But if God leads you that way, please do it.
Yeah. If that's what God's will is for you, we hope this testimony inspires you to go for it. But yeah, we're not saying like everyone should do this because it definitely is unconventional and by human wisdom looks really silly in many aspects. But oftentimes God's wisdom does not make sense in a human way. And I think as you were sharing, like I just can't help but feel so proud of you because I feel like I've seen your journey of how, especially like for money and finances, this is a
This is like
continual.
the Asian inside of me is just like, no, this is wrong.
Yeah, yeah. So it's like unlearning, and you're so great at like taking up the challenges of knowing, you have certain strongholds that you've battled, you've overcome, you've gotten so much breakthrough in to, like even a few years ago, like you wouldn't be in this position today, like the choices that you would make a few years ago compared to today, I feel like reflect your tremendous growth of really trusting God and not just saying you trust God, but actually like tangibly with your life decisions trusting God. And I mean, there's so much that we can already see that, oh, this makes so much sense in terms of how God would do this. And especially for me as his wife, when he would put in the remote request, I actually did intentionally pray and ask God, like, God, either like make a miracle happen and make this thing, work out so that, we'll be provided for in that aspect. But even if it doesn't, we know we trust you. We trust that you will provide and take care of us or redirect us, whatever it means. But close the door if it's not meant to be, because we know that every closed door from you is just redirecting us to something better. And as this whole thing has played out, I've also gone through a lot of ups and downs. Like some days I feel like, oh yeah, this is great. God's got us. We're, we're walking by faith and this is perfect because we want to teach other people to walk by faith. At the same time, it's also, there's been many, many moments, I think, especially when it got rejected for you. I also was going through this really intense spiritual warfare. We were in Orange County. It was really hard for me that week. And I just had so much anxiety and had a panic attack, actually, not just because of this thing, but like on top of other personal things that were going on. I was like so scared, so discouraged, so like, what is gonna happen? I have no idea. And just like a lot of like dark thoughts were coming up for me, that I knew were not of me, but were like the enemy trying to steal, kill, and destroy, basically, of our faith and our hope and our wisdom in the situation. So I remember I also sent you a bunch of like job listings too, because I was like, yeah, like what else is gonna happen? Maybe God will close the door on this work situation, but then he'll provide in other, like those other jobs. But then I also felt torn because I knew that Alex wanted to focus more on his coaching business that we launched this past year, as well as I would love to work more together because we do have very complementary strengths and gifts that also make me, like when I'm trying to do things by myself, it feels a lot harder versus when Alex comes alongside and helps. And both of us have that shared vision of like shared teamwork, entrepreneurship versus doing entrepreneurship by ourselves. So there's just like so many reasons why I'm like, this would make so much sense for Alex to actually have some time, like have some more margin, but also to focus more on our businesses. Plus, you had mentioned the beginning of this year. Do you remember? You're like, oh, it'd be so nice if I could like take some time off someday. But it was like a pipe dream. It was like,
Did I say that?
yeah, because when I was mentioning, like, man, I have so much that God has already been teaching me through this season of not having a formal employer besides, ourselves. And I was telling you, I wish everybody could have this blessing and this privilege of experiencing this because it teaches you so much that you wouldn't otherwise be able to learn if you're constantly on that hamster wheel of like, corporate work life or fast paced work. And then you mentioned, oh, that'd be so great if I could, someday get a taste of that too. And I was like, yeah, I would fully support you doing that. But internally, I was like, I don't know if you would be willing to do that, knowing that wanted a secure line to hold on to. And then one more thing I wanted to mention is like we also learned, but we love watching and studying like lives of really successful like Christian, just like big dreamers, people who've done incredible things that seemed impossible, but were only possible because of God and how they've stepped out of the norm of the boxes and limitations that society tells you need to stay in, and that's really inspired us. And so one common theme that I feel like we saw was like going all in and not having a plan B, because that really, first of all,
Yeah.
forces you to trust God and not your plan B, but also lights up a flame under you where you're like, I have nothing else. I literally have nothing else. So I'm going to put all of myself, like my
Mm,
passion, my focus, my attention now 100%, 200% into this thing versus just straddling and being overstretched with other things that might be actually taking away from the focus that God wants you to put into that one thing. So when all of this has unfolded, like the more it's unfolded, the more I'm like, it actually makes so much sense. Not that I'm trying to like rationalize God, but I'm like, I see you, God. I see what you're
mm.
trying to do. So,
Yeah, one of the mentors that I talk with, he helped me process this whole thing. Like, what should I do? Should I look for externally? Should I look internally? This is like my life right now, big picture. What do you think? And this guy is he's a pretty successful. He's semi-retired now, but he was a chief executive officer. And so he said to me that, and he advises a lot of startups and founders and entrepreneurs, and I asked him, do you find out of all the successful people that you know, did any of them put in less than 100%? And when I asked that, I felt dumb because I just answered my own question.
yeah, yeah.
But basically, what I was asking for myself was just practically, is it possible to start and run a business while working a full-time job? That was my question that I was trying to answer.
Mm,
And he helped me process through that. And basically, he said, if you ever want anything to be successful, you need to be 100% in it.
right.
So for you, it's a matter of when, not if.
Mm,
You could work a full time job, but success could be a little bit more delayed. Or you can go all in. It doesn't really matter. But there's got to be a point where you go all in if you want that thing to be successful. So, I looked at our finances and being the practical guy that I am, and I thought, we don't have kids right now. We're still relatively young.
mm-hmm.
We can take risks, and it's scary still, even as I'm talking about this. But I feel like out of all the information that I have, out of what God has told me, I feel like I have enough wisdom and information to make this informed next step.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that's where we are.
It's huge. It's huge because we come from very risk averse backgrounds as Asian Americans with parents who, their model of or their traditional model of what you're supposed to do is climb the corporate ladder, have a very secure tech job, you know,
Yeah.
buy a house, do all these things. But it's like, and they don't know God, right? So it's also like, by human convention and wisdom, yeah, that does make a lot of sense to be safe and secure is to follow what everyone else does or tells you you should do. But I feel like in this whole journey, the more I reflect on it, the more I'm like, wow, I really feel like God is teaching us experientially the things that He wants to equip us to share and to teach other people to walk in, and we would have no authority to teach that if we're not experiencing this ourselves. Like if we want to teach other people to
Yeah.
oh, go ahead.
If we want to teach people to live by faith, and faith looks different for everyone,
Mm-hmm.
then hey, we
We get to
gotta
do it.
live it out ourselves. So we
Yeah.
have the conviction to back it
Right,
up.
right. Or not idolize money, not be dictated by this is possible by human standards, therefore we must blah blah blah. And even jobs and work, like that is such a huge common stronghold for so many people without even realizing it. And that's been a huge area for me personally I've had a lot of breakthrough with God with because of this year. And so I just feel so excited because I feel like, well, when we look ahead, in 2024, as we release this episode, it'll already be 2024, but as we look ahead this year, I feel like God has so much, like this is just the very tip of the iceberg of like how God wants to stretch us, grow us, and equip us with the things to then steward for His purposes to teach other people and help other people walk in freedom, in not relying on things that we've been taught our whole lives must be a certain way or must look a certain way. And also how to take risks that are God led, God informed risks, but also not be reckless. And we have a lot of episodes about that, about how to walk with God, make decisions with God, and also believe that his grace really is sufficient, as he says in his word. Like if we believe God is our father, our provider, as a good father, he's not just gonna let you out like, oh, good luck, you made a dumb decision, like you're on your own. Like he's gonna be with us, taking care and giving us everything we need, whether it is in that direction or another direction that he's gonna take us in. So I feel like for me especially, I've been learning a lot about the character of God through walking this out in a way that I feel like he's given me taste of it, and both of us have gotten taste of walking by faith in other ways. But I honestly feel like this decision has been the culmination of all of that, of like level,
I
like
think
boss level.
I think this is my you know how like in Maple Story
I was thinking the same thing. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
or any
Like the
game where you
Balrog.
yeah, right? Like you beat a boss and then you level
Yeah,
up.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
feel like, oh man, this
Like,
is definitely one of the bigger risks that I personally taken.
yeah.
It maybe to others it's not that big of a risk. Like, oh yeah, I left my job many times. But for me, it's definitely a stronghold of
Yeah.
security, and especially as Grace said, my parents are Vietnamese immigrants, and they came here with nothing. And all my life, I've been told security, get a great job, stability. And so this is definitely breaking out of the cultural systems that I've learned
Mm-hmm.
to work a corporate job or whatever job that makes a decent amount of money. And this is totally opposite.
Yeah.
It's super scary.
Yeah.
It's I mean I know it's not going to be a walk in the park, but at the same time, it's exciting.
Yeah. Yeah. Now I can't stop thinking about Maple Story and how, when you first start, okay, anyone who has never played Maple Story, you missed out. I'm sorry. But for those who did, you know what I'm talking about. When you first start out, you're like weak. You have like no skills, and you need the experience to level up so that you can attack those bigger monsters. Otherwise, you walk in there, the monster just touches you and you die. Like that's literally what happens. It's because you don't have the HP. Okay, now I'm getting really
Health points. Anyways,
yeah.
battle big monsters in life, level up in life
Yes.
is
Yes.
the goal.
Yeah, and then the more you can contribute to, like when you're in a guild or a community of people. Okay. Anyway, one thing for like you talked about that I was reminded of is like our parents. So I think a lot of times as Asians,
Mm,
it's hard to go for the things that you feel like God is leading you to, especially if it goes against what your parents would be happy with. It
preach it.
just really quick to touch on this. I think I've gone through my fair share. I mean, both of us have, but I think especially for me, um, with my dad. If you are curious, you can. I think it's episode 5 or 6 about our dads, and just constantly my entire life feeling this tension of I want to honor and love my dad and my parents, but I don't want to be confined to the things that I feel like they're telling me I need to do because it doesn't resonate. It doesn't align with my personal values and vision, especially with what God is telling me. Like at the end of the day, God's voice is the most important voice to listen to. And so I constantly battle. I mean, to this day, I still navigate and manage that tension and hold that. But I think what if someone can relate to that, what I want to encourage you with is honoring your parents doesn't necessarily mean doing everything that'll make them happy. Because at the
Ooh,
end of the day, honoring,
ooh,
their sacrifice, what they've given is so you can thrive. You can live the life that God wants you to live, and that picture of success in God's mind might not look the same as the picture of success in their minds, because our parents, especially if they're not Christian, they have a very specific idea of like, this is what success looks like in order for my kid to be safe, successful, happy, for me to feel good, because they have their own insecurities too. So there's a lot of like human brokenness in that, even if there's a lot of good intent. And so what we have to understand is it's so much more important to put things into perspective where you're like, even if this decision upsets them temporarily, like in this season where they can't fully understand or support maybe, I really have to honor God and follow him and be obedient to God no matter the cost. And like, I still love my parents, I still want the best for them, but if they really want their sacrifices to count, like the best way to honor their sacrifices is actually to be honoring to God and like what he's leading me to do, rather than stay caged in and unhappy and unfulfilled and living this life that is not mine in the first place.
Hmm.
So
Wow.
I
I
hope
think
that
you
preaches
spoke
to
to a lot of people.
there's a lot more to that, but thankfully, I mean, one half of our parents is supportive.
One half of our parents.
Like 50% of our parents are supportive.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, which was surprising. I'm really happy and thankful for that. So at least we have 50% support.
Yeah,
But yeah,
but
we've also been really blessed to have supportive friends in the process. I feel like that's why, God's really given us so much in terms of like supportive community, faithful friends, people who are encouraging us and being like, you guys are inspiring us, to live by faith. And I'm like, really? Because I feel like I'm just derping around, like not
yeah,
sure what I'm doing.
man.
Yeah.
A word on friendships. If you can find at least one friend who just like supports you unconditionally,
Love
like
those people. Yes.
ride and die people, dude, just keep them.
Priceless.
They're priceless.
Yeah.
I can name just like with one hand. I can name those people.
Yeah.
Like wherever I go, you're supportive. If I do stupid stuff, you call me out. Those are
Yeah.
great friends.
You don't need many of them, but you need quality over quantity. So, yeah. And then last thing I'll mention before we move to the last part is um I remember like the week that we were going through like the, rejected remote requests, and then you were also like not sure what to do with your job, and then I was also feeling anxious and fearful. God really just set up, it just feels like he laid like the track forward for us to get rejuvenated, because you know how like when you run a marathon, I mean, I've never ran a marathon, but this is what I heard is you get tired and you need to replenish, right? There's like,
I've ran a marathon
okay,
or a half marathon,
there's
but
rest stations.
there's replenishment
Right,
stations.
right, right.
There are bananas, gummies,
Yeah,
water
with nutrients and the
with
things that,
nutrients.
yeah, the
Yep.
things that you need to like get stronger again. So I really feel like God gave us the exact perfect rest stop that we needed, because right after that happened, we had a great, just such life-giving time with our small group, just praying over us, encouraging us with their own testimonies of doing things by faith and interceding for specific things that we were struggling with. And then also we had like two back-to-back two or three podcast interviews literally in those weeks that were about people taking bold steps of faith, leaving everything, quitting their job, like moving to a place they had no plan. And I was like, that is a very specific testimony, and all of these people happen to have this testimony, and it was so encouraging. And then not only that, but you had, your mentors hangouts, and the scheduling of it just all happened to be like consecutive between like the span of 3 days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I was desperate
Yeah.
to get their feedback.
Yeah.
So,
But like I remember it wasn't specifically like, oh, it has to be on this day. It was like,
yeah,
but
yeah. Yeah, some of them worked out well.
yeah.
Others I forced them to talk to me.
But yeah, it was just like, wow, God really just gave us all the things we needed to have peace and make this decision. And since then, I feel like we've gotten so much more confidence and peace about it. Although there's still ups and flows for sure, because when you're walking on water, even Peter started singing when he was
True,
with
true.
Jesus.
But,
So
if you stay connected with God, you'll be planted and rooted and green in all seasons.
mm-hmm.
I think that
Yes.
was Proverbs or Psalms 1. Anyways,
Love it.
um
So cool. Well, to wrap up this episode, we just want to say thank you for listening to our very long-winded story. We hope it encourages you. We would love your prayers if you are listening to this and are a believer. We would love your prayers for great community, for great housing. We haven't found housing there yet as of the time of this recording.
great gyms
Hopefully we will by the time this comes out.
for me.
Great gyms. Yeah, what we love about like the more we research and talk to people about San Diego, the more we're like, wow, we are really excited for the culture, the lifestyle, but also the community of like-minded Christian entrepreneurs. So yeah, please be praying that for our transition, and that God would just guide us and provide for us, but also that we would just carry his peace with us even in the midst of the uncertainty. And ultimately that this would be a testimony that we could share to other people to glorify God. And I mean, I know we're sharing this in progress testimony, but hopefully we'll have a more complete testimony to share after all the pieces kind of work out more and are more clear.
Yeah, and also please continue to pray for the Bay. Just because
Yes.
we're leaving, that doesn't mean that we hate the Bay or anything like that. We love the
No.
Bay,
Yeah.
and these past 5 years, at least, speaking for myself, it's been an incredible 5 years, and
Yeah.
I'll probably do a post on this later, but I've had so many amazing experiences with people, and I've learned so much, and I could probably do a reel on this, but
Yeah.
I don't want to cry right now.
You've
But
grown a lot too.
yeah, but yeah, it's a end of a chapter, but yeah, just pray for the Bay.
Definitely. Yep. And we'll still like come up and visit. I mean, we have family here, we have friends and community here, and a lot of stuff happening. So it's not that far, to be honest. Like it's still the same state. But actually we'll be closer to your family, which is also a good like change.
Yes,
But
yes.
yeah.
So, with all that said, we have a lot of big things ahead as well. Not just this transition, but big things ahead to serve all of you, listeners, viewers. Please subscribe to our email list. That's how you can stay really up to date on what's happening in our lives, but also what we're putting out into the world, either things to serve you better or recent or podcast episodes.
Yes, you can find that link in the description below. And again, if you haven't yet, it's not too late to get the 2024 goal setting guide where you can set intentional, clear, focus, and action oriented plans with God for your 2024 because you don't want life to just pass you by. You want to live it with intentionality and activeness and in partnership with God. And so, yeah, we hope it blesses you guys. And we'll see you again next week for another episode on how to do life with God.